A few years ago, I was sitting in my car after a long day. Not the good kind of long, like a day full of laughter and meaningful work. No. This was the kind of long that presses on your chest. The kind of tired that isn't just physical. It's bone deep. I had just left a gathering where I'd once again said yes when I wanted to say no. Once again stayed late, showed up early, helped everyone, answered calls, gave rides, comforted hearts, cleaned up messes I didn't create. And as I sat there in the silence of my car, I had this realization that cracked something open in me. Before we dive into today's message, I want to invite you, if something in this touches your heart, if you feel seen, or if you know someone who needs these words, please like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment. This space is for all of us. Let's grow it together, from the inside out. I want to take you back to that moment in the car again. Sitting there in the fading light, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring blankly out of the windshield as people walk past. I remember feeling so heavy, but not in the physical sense. It was like every yes I had said when I didn't mean it was sitting on my chest like bricks. I didn't even have the energy to cry. Just sat there wondering how I got here, how I became everyone's go-to, everyone's helper, everyone's rock, and no one's priority. I had become someone who answered every late-night text, the one who stayed behind to clean up after everyone had gone home, the one who listened to stories, wiped tears, helped move apartments, covered shifts, said yes to favors, went out of my way, and made room for others, even when there was no room left for myself. And you know what's wild? People love you when you're useful. They sing your praises. They admire your strength, your patience, your giving heart. They'll call you an angel, a godsend. They'll say, I don't know what I'd do without you. And at first, it feels so good to be seen that way. It feels like love. It feels like meaning. It feels like you've earned your place in their lives. But the longer you wear that badge of usefulness, the more it becomes your identity. And the more it becomes your identity, it starts small, a favor here, a compromise there, but slowly it becomes the only way you know how to relate to others. Not from your heart, but from your ability to fix, to serve, to hold space for others while shrinking your own. You forget how to just exist without trying to be valuable. And this is the painful truth I didn't want to admit for a long time. I wasn't doing all those things only because I was kind. I was doing them because I was afraid. Afraid that if I stopped being useful, I'd stop being loved. Afraid that if I said no, I'd be seen as selfish. Afraid that if I didn't show up, people would leave. Afraid that my worth was tied to my ability to make other people's lives easier. That fear can mask itself so well in kindness. It looks like generosity. It looks like being a good friend, a good partner, a good parent, a good parent, a good parent, a good employee. It looks like respect and grace. It looks like love that stands out of merit and courage and selflessness. And now, but underneath, it's often just fear wearing a smile. I think a lot of us, especially those who've been hurt or neglected or abandoned at some point, we carry this quiet belief that we have to earn our place, that we have to do in order to be loved. And so we pour ourselves into the cracks of other people's lives, hoping they'll see us, hoping it will be enough. But here's the quiet tragedy. The more you make yourself useful, the more invisible you become. People see the support, but they don't see you. They see what you give, but they never stop to ask what you need. They know how you make them feel, but they don't always care how you're feeling. And eventually you start to vanish in your own life. So when I say stop being useful to everyone, I don't mean stop being kind. I mean stop believing that your only value is what you offer to others. Because you are so much more than your productivity. You are more than your reliability. You are more than your ability to keep it all together. You are worthy even when your hands are empty. You are enough even when you have nothing left to give. Have you ever walked into a room full of people you care about deeply and still felt completely unseen? That kind of invisibility doesn't scream. It whispers. It settles in like dust over time, quiet, soft, almost unnoticeable, until one day you realize you've disappeared. Not in a dramatic, heartbreaking way, but in the subtle, soul-numbing kind of way that happens when you're always showing up for others, but no one is showing up to you. When you're useful to everyone, you become a fixture, like a lamp in the corner of the room. Always there, always providing light, expected to work, never needing to be noticed, until you stop glowing. Then people look up, not with concern, but with inconvenience. What happened? Why aren't you there for me like you always are? It's painful, because it makes you realize how conditional some connections truly are. We don't like to admit it, but sometimes people don't value us. They value the version of us that makes their life easier. They value the support we give, not the soul we are. They love the comfort of our presence, but not the complexity of our personhood. And I get it. It's easy to become that person. The one who says, "Don't worry, I've got it." The one who says, "It's okay, I'll stay late." The one who smiles even when they're breaking. Because somewhere along the way, we learned that being low maintenance was safer. That not needing too much made us more likable. That being the helper, the fixer, the doer made us lovable. But here's the heartbreaking truth. When you make yourself small to be accepted, the acceptance you get is never real. People aren't loving you, they're loving the mask you're wearing. They aren't seeing your needs because you've trained yourself to hide them. They don't check on you because they assume you're always fine. And every time you make yourself more convenient for others, you teach them that your well-being can come second, or third, or never. You become a background character in your own story, a supporting role in everyone else's narrative, someone whose presence is expected, but whose pain is overlooked. And over time, something inside you goes quiet, not because you don't want to speak, but because you've forgotten how. Not because you don't want to be seen, but because being invisible has become easier than being disappointed. And I want you to know something. That ache you feel in your chest when no one checks in on you, that's not weakness. That's your soul reminding you that you were never meant to survive on scraps. You were never designed to be someone's utility. You were made for connection, real connection, the kind that sees you, holds you, and doesn't ask for anything in return, the kind of love that doesn't need you to be useful, just present, just you. So if you've been feeling invisible lately, I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Have I been teaching people to only notice me when I'm giving? And if the answer is yes, let that be your wake-up call, not to blame yourself, but to find your way back to you. Because being useful should never come at the cost of being known. And if someone only keeps you around for what you do for them, they don't deserve the sacredness of your presence. You deserve to be loved in your stillness, in your silence, in your sadness. Let me tell you something that might make your stomach twist a little the first time you hear it, but once it settles, it just might change your life. You are going to have to learn how to disappoint people and still be okay with yourself. This was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn, and honestly, I still stumble over it sometimes. Because for most of my life, I was terrified of being the reason someone else was upset. I thought disappointment was a form of failure, that if someone was unhappy with me, it meant I had done something wrong. So I overextended, I overcompensated, I overdelivered. I made myself into a human cushion, always softening the blow, smoothing things over, showing up even when I was exhausted, just to avoid that uncomfortable moment where someone's face drops, or their voice gets cold, or they say, "Oh, I thought you'd help." But here's what that really does. It puts everyone else's comfort above your own capacity. And over time, it creates a quiet war inside you, a battle between the self that wants peace and the self that's terrified of rejection. I remember the first time I told someone, I can't do that. Not I'm busy or maybe later or some polite excuse that softened the blow. I mean a real, clear, boundary-filled no. Their response wasn't kind. In fact, it was full of guilt-tripping and passive aggression. And every part of me wanted to fold, to go back, to say, okay, never mind, I'll do it. Because that was the muscle I had trained for years. People-pleasing, peacekeeping, staying likable, avoiding conflict. But I didn't. I let the silence hang. I let their disappointment exist without scrambling to erase it. And that was the beginning of something new in me, the birth of a deeper kind of self-respect. Because here's what no one tells you when you're raised to always be the good one, the kind one, the helpful one. Sometimes choosing yourself will make other people uncomfortable. And that doesn't make you wrong. It makes you real. You will disappoint people when you stop being their emotional crutch. You will disappoint people when you speak your truth instead of their version of it. You will disappoint people when you rest instead of rush, when you say no instead of course, when you make room for your own life instead of constantly managing theirs. And you know what? That's okay. That's necessary. Because when you build your life around keeping others happy, you start abandoning yourself in small ways. And eventually those small abandonments add up to something devastating. Resentment, burnout, bitterness, emotional exhaustion. Learning to disappoint people is not about being selfish. It's about being honest. And honest people don't pretend to be okay when they're not. They don't say yes when their soul is screaming no. They don't apologize for taking up space. They know that a relationship that requires you to betray yourself to maintain it is not a healthy relationship. It's a transaction. And I know, it feels scary. You might lose people. You might be misunderstood. Some people will call you changed or difficult or not like you used to be. And in some ways, they'll be right. You're not like you used to be. You're starting to belong to yourself now. So here's what I want you to remember. You are not responsible for how people feel about your boundaries. You are only responsible for honoring your truth. Let their disappointment exist. Let their frustration rise. Let their silence come. And then, let yourself exhale. You just chose yourself. And that's a sacred, courageous thing. And no, it doesn't mean you don't care. There comes a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes like a lightning strike, when you realize you've spent years chasing something that was never meant to be earned in the first place. Love. Not the romantic butterflies kind of love. I'm talking about fundamental belonging, the kind that whispers, you are enough exactly as you are. The kind that doesn't hinge on what you do, what you give, or how well you perform. But for so many of us, that message never came. Or if it did, it came with strings attached. Maybe it sounded like, you're such a good girl when you help mommy. I'm proud of you when you get straight A's. You're so mature. You never cause trouble like the others. We love you because you always think about everyone else. It doesn't seem harmful at first. It might even feel like praise, but it plants a seed, a quiet belief that love is a transaction, that if I give, then I'll be safe. If I serve, then I'll be accepted. If I stay small and selfless, then maybe, just maybe, I'll be worthy. And so we become performers, not on a stage, but in real life. We become the best listener, the most reliable friend, the overachieving student, the dependable partner. We perfect the role of the person who needs nothing, so we can keep the love we think we have to earn. But here's the soul-shaking truth I want you to sit with. You were not born to earn love. You were born to receive it. Real love, deep, nourishing, soul-level love, doesn't ask you to prove yourself. It doesn't withhold itself when you're tired or struggling or can't give back. It doesn't love you because of what you do. It loves you for who you are, even when you're messy, even when you fall apart, even when you're quiet and soft and still. You are not a service. You are not a convenience. You are not a transaction. You are a human being with a heart that deserves rest, softness, grace. And listen, I know how hard it is to believe this when the world keeps rewarding your usefulness, when people cheer the version of you that never complains, never breaks down, never sets boundaries, when your identity has been wrapped around being the strong one, the helper, the one who always holds it together. But here's what I want you to hear. Strength is not found in your ability to endure endless giving. True strength is found in your willingness to believe that you deserve love, even when you give nothing at all. I once sat across from a woman, someone who had spent her entire life mothering everyone around her, and who had ended her whole life mothering everyone around her. She had built a life around usefulness, nurturing, fixing, being the one. And I asked her, gently, "Who takes care of you?" She paused, her eyes filled with tears. She said, "No one. I don't think I've ever asked anyone to." She wasn't weak, she wasn't broken, she was just tired. Tired of earning a place in a world that never taught her she already belonged. That moment stuck with me because so many of us, especially the caretakers, the empaths, the overgivers, we've been giving from a place of survival, not wholeness. We give because we think if we stop, the love will leave. But love that leaves when you're not useful wasn't love to begin with. You don't have to hold the world on your shoulders to matter. You don't have to keep earning your keep in someone else's heart. You don't have to keep proving that you deserve to stay. You do. You already do. Let that truth crack open the armor you've been wearing for years. Let it breathe life into the soft parts of you that you've buried. Let it remind you that your value doesn't lie in what you can do, but in who you are, even on your quietest, least productive days. You were never meant to live in a constant performance of love. You were meant to receive it, just as you are, not when you're useful, not when you're perfect. So where do we go from here? What do we do when we wake up and realize we've spent our lives becoming everything for everyone except ourselves? The truth is, this kind of awakening doesn't feel like liberation at first. It feels like grief. It feels like a quiet mourning for all the versions of you who thought that being needed was the same as being loved. It feels like standing in the middle of a house you built with your own two hands, only to discover it was never yours to live in. And it hurts. It's disorienting. Because when your identity has been built around being useful, letting go of that can feel like letting go of your worth entirely. You start asking questions you don't have easy answers for. Who am I if I'm not fixing everything? What do I have to offer if I'm not always available? Will they still love me when I stop showing up for everyone else and start showing up for myself? Those are not small questions. They shake the foundations of your life. But buried beneath the rubble of those questions is something so much more powerful. A new foundation. One that isn't built on performance, but on presence. One that says, I am worthy. I am whole. I am enough, even when I am still. This is where the real work begins. And it's not loud, flashy work. It's slow, sacred, deeply personal work. It's the work of coming home to yourself. It's learning to say no without guilt, and yes without fear. It's allowing yourself to rest without apology. It's setting boundaries that protect your peace, even if they upset other people. It's telling the truth about what you feel, what you want, what you no longer have the capacity for. And above all, it's remembering this. You are not a machine built to meet others' needs. You are a human being with needs of your own. And those needs are not a burden. They are a birthright. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed to be loved in return. You are allowed to be seen, not just for what you give, but for who you are. The world will try to convince you that your value lies in your usefulness, but I'm here. heart wide open, to remind you. Your value is inherent. It does not fluctuate based on what you provide. It does not disappear when you're tired. It does not diminish when you need to be held instead of doing the holding. And yes, when you start living this way, some people may drift away. People who only saw you as a resource, not a relationship. Let them go. That is not rejection. That is clarity. That is the universe clearing space for people who will love you not for what you do, but for who you are. Because there are people out there, and they're closer than you think, who will not be repelled by your boundaries, but inspired by them. Who will not resent your rest, but respect it. Who will not fear your honesty, but feel safe in it. And most importantly, you will begin to meet yourself again. You will begin to hear your own voice beneath the noise of others' expectations. You will begin to feel safe in your own body, in your own choices, in your own truth. So here's what I want you to remember and carry with you. You don't need to be useful to be lovable. You don't need to be everything for everyone to be enough. You don't need to keep abandoning yourself to be accepted. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be connected with. You are not here to be used. You are here to be known. You are not here to disappear behind everyone else's needs. You are here to live fully and belong deeply, first to yourself. So take up space, speak your truth, stop over-perfunctioning just to stay in the room. Let the roles fall away